Homeowners at the end. It was our house for 6 months. It's been the only house on this old house that we got to hang out in. Like, not for an hour or two, but for a couple.
In 2003, a banker sent a desperate email about wallpaper. That email changed television history. Kevin O'Connor went from making six figures at Bank of America to hosting America's most trusted home show. He built a $7 million fortune. Won Emmy nominations. Kevin O'Connor became the host of America's most trusted home show. Built an empire, won Emmys, and made a $7 million fortune, but something is going on. He won't say Bob VA's name. He attacks HGTV. Cast members are retiring from public shows, and now strange rumors are. Kevin is ready to tell the truth about his future after months of rumors. The truth about Kevin O'Connor that he tells will shock even his biggest fans begins in the middle of a construction site, not on a TV screen. Born around 1968 or 1969 in Maplewood, New Jersey, into a family that never really Kevin had 4 brothers and 2 sisters when he was growing up. Scaffolding and sawdust. His dad was a civil engineer, and this was their family home. It was often used as a construction site. Instead of riding bikes or playing tag, the kids as a child. Kevin knew how to measure things and passed around hammers and helped pour concrete. Others learned their times tables while others worked with wood, hung drywall, and read blueprints. He was practicing how to frame a door. It was crazy, loud, and normal. That place didn't just teach him how to build things, it also a natural sense of how things were put together. This sense would later set him apart from every other TV host in the home improvement world, but at age 19, life threw him a curveball. Kevin started passing out all of a sudden while training for the military. He would just fall over. Many times, doctors did tests and found a heart murmur. It wasn't just it was a small problem that made people wonder if he could even stay in the military. But now it gets interesting. All of his medical records from that time have been lost since that diagnosis. Nobody could explain why that missing paper trail would lead to late in life, especially when he tried to keep track of his health history. An event changed the course of his life. Any hopes he had for joining the military faded, and he was left with uncertainty. He had to rethink everything, including what kind of plan he should make. Even possible with a heart condition that didn't have any official records, so he went to school. He graduated from St. Benedict's Preparatory School in Newark in 1986. Was strict and tough, just what Kevin needed. He then went after that, he went to the College of the Holy Cross to study history and got his degree in 1990. It might seem strange for someone to study history if they are going to host a construction show, but it taught him how to do it. To look into how to make connections between ideas and how to make things clear that would be important later. Still, he wasn't done. He went back to school in 1999 with an MBA from Boston University that made it possible for him to get high-level corporate jobs when he was done with school. Kevin wasn't sure if he could hold his own in boardrooms like he did. He got a job right away and started a fast-tracked career in banking. He started at Fleet Bank as a sports analyst. Finance group. This wasn't a dull desk job, he helped pay for stadiums and big sports centers. He wasn't just adding numbers, he was helping to build the places where cities came together. Someone noticed how well he could think strategically. That opened up a bigger chance in commercial real estate, so he joined Bank of America and rose quickly. By the time he was in his early 30s, Kevin was a senior vice president. He was in charge of million-dollar portfolios and got paid, got bonuses, and got stock. He could choose everything that came with a high-flying business life. Had 6 figures in it from the outside, it looked great. Surprised everyone. Kevin O'Connor quit. He quit banking from a big company with a title and a salary that most people can only dream of. Why? Drills, sawdust, and the sound of them never left his mind. As you put your hand on a well-built wall, Kevin O'Connor and his wife in Beverly, Massachusetts, Kathleen bought a lovely Queen and Victorian home. It was constructed in 1894 and seemed like a fantasy world. But when they moved in, that fantasy world became real. It fell apart quickly. The house needed new kitchens and bathrooms. And even makeovers for bedrooms. But the worst part is the wallpaper. And it wasn't just old, it had been painted over many times. Every room was full of mistakes that Kevin and Kathleen made when they were designing it. Worked on those walls for months. Victorian homes often had rounded corners. It was even harder in people's homes because the wallpaper wouldn't come off. Ads, we were scraping like crazy and this stuff just wasn't coming off. Kathleen worked on the plastering while Kevin tore down walls and ceilings to make the small space bigger. In the kitchen, they were tired, angry, and stuck in a pure moment of with no other choice. They sent an email to the crew of the show they had watched since childhood. What they didn't know was that around the same time that the show's producers were making a new show called Ask This Old House, the timing couldn't have been better, Kevin wrote in the email. He said there had to be a secret method or trick. He didn't expect anything, just a cry for help when it came to taking down that wallpaper. They offered to go to Kevin's and film a segment, that's not all. Kevin was thrilled because he thought this was just a one-time visit from his. He didn't know that this visit wasn't just about wallpaper, though. It was for a secret screen. They filmed what would become episode 22 of the first season of Ask This Old House, which aired on March 6, 2003. Kevin's interest lit up the set. Not stopped asking questions, not even during lunch. Tom Silva is the host of the show. Contractor hardly had time to eat. Kevin later made fun of it by saying that he hounded the contractor. Tom during breaks, but the producers were paying close attention and saw something. More than an angry homeowner, they caught someone who was naturally funny. Someone who felt like a host and asked the same questions that people at home were asking Kevin. He ran out to take a picture with the crew because he knew he would never see them again and wanted a pic to remember them. But 3 weeks later, something strange happened. Kevin got a call that he was a senior vice president in the commercial property business at the time. When the phone rang, he thought it was the real estate group at Bank of America, somebody asking for a loan, but it wasn't them, it was the people who make this old house. As the host of both the spin-off and the original show. He even asked his boss to keep the job open because he thought it was a joke. His mind was so blank that he was sure he'd be back at the bank in a year. But it wasn't just wanting him, they were willing to risk the whole show on him. It would be about him in the future. That was big because this old house had already been through two very dramatic. The first was Bob Vila, who had been the show's host since the beginning. 1979, popularized the show, but VA only made $200 per episode his first few seasons, and even in his last few, he was only making $800 an episode. Over 10 years and 235 episodes later, he made between $47,000 and $188,000 a year. It was less than what many contractors make in a year. Things went badly when VA started doing Rickle Home Center ads. Ran at the same time that Home Depot and Wire Heuser sponsored the show. His bosses at PBS told him to back off, but he did. The $500,000 endorsement deals or the show were your choice. VA picked the money. He was fired. His agent found out right away from a press release. Then Steve Thomas showed up. He was a host for 14 years and won an Emmy in 1998. But when he was 50 years old, he quietly retired in 2003. They were no longer on TV. There was no goodbye show or big announcement. That he wanted to sail and ski. People inside the company thought it was strange that he had helped make This Old House was the most popular show in its category, but all of a sudden he wasn't there. Putting together smaller shows for the DIY network viewers were unclear. The producers were worried that whoever came next would have a lot of work to do. The person they chose had never worked in TV before. Kevin O'Connor had never even tried out. He never sent in a resume or asked for the job, but the producers gave it to him anyway. After one shoot with had looked at more than 400 applicants to replace Thomas then. Kevin, they stopped looking at him. He was sitting in beach chairs in the basement with the creator of the show, Russell Morrish, when he got the offer. That's how casual it was. Been with the show since 1979 and was hired for a very good reason. He told him, in Kevin, we found the perfect mix of hope and energy. There are two things that the owner of an old house must have in order to stay alive. People didn't greet him with handshakes or small talk in 2003, Richard Trethoy. The show's straightforward plumbing and heating expert just gave him a shovel. Kevin, who used to be a senior vice president at Bank America, all of a sudden found himself digging holes for sewer lines. That wasn't a TV drama. It was real, hard work that wasn't staged for cameras or sped up in any way. This was Richard's test. Was Kevin there to look the part or to earn money? Every bump, sore spot, and drop of sweat taught Kevin something. From a young age, he learned the most important thing: don't talk, listen. That hard lesson would shape his whole career. Let the pros lead. He wasn't just being beaten up by Richard. Tom Silva, the show's master, did it too. The carpenter also threw him in at the deep end. He didn't ask Kevin to act. He gave him a saw and told him to cut real wood for real builds, even though he knew every mistake would be caught on camera, and Tom wasn't interested in TV hosts who were too perfect. His goal was to find someone who could do the work, not just talk about it. Kevin spent off-camera hours learning how to use tools and measure accurately. He knew how to keep the crew safe without slowing them down. He wasn't just going to be a host. People could tell he was struggling because he was becoming part of the team. Like they did in their own garages and backyards, learn and get better. After being on the show for a year, he got a surprise that no one saw coming. In 2004, Kevin was up for an Emmy for outstanding service as a show host. Not even found his groove yet, but the business world saw something that some critics were shocked by the nomination because they thought a finance guy shouldn't be hosting a tech show. Had worked hard for years to build their reputations, but Kevin did it in just one season. It was important that he was honest and that he could connect with experts. He wasn't just hosting, that Emmy win showed it. He was changing the way people watched TV. Home improvement on TV made Kevin change in some way during those first years. Later, he realized that what he really loved was not wandering off to the side. Jumping in with a hammer to lay bricks and working hard with the crew. What happened changed everything. Kevin stopped being a guide for the viewers and started learning himself. Became partnerships instead of interviews. The experts didn't just answer his questions, they taught him as well. By doing this, they taught millions of people. This hands-on style didn't just the show felt more real and grounded by making Kevin easier to relate to. That's exactly what kept people watching. The same kind of honesty This Old House was first meant to feel when it first aired in 2002. It started out like a magazine segment, but when Kevin joined, it came to be much more. Bigger. He wasn't just a host stopping by, he went to real homes and solved real problems. He had issues and got his hands dirty. What was outrageous was how he got the job in first. He was caught while taking down wallpaper in his own home. A guy who had never been on TV and needed help with a project. By 2025, the show had Kevin was the star of the show for more than 20 years. He not only ran it, but he also joined the This Old House magazine's editorial board. Controls the stories in both on TV and in print. His rise from financier to franchise builder was nearly impossible. Unbelievable, but Kevin wasn't done yet. In 2003, the same year he became host of Within This Old House, he started a third show. Behind the Scenes looks at some of the most famous projects in the history of the show. He managed to work at all three shows at the same time, which is crazy. Before quitting his job, Bank of America, he was sure he could make this work. Taking that much care made his success even more impressive. Wasn't after fame, he was building something that would last. Old House showed the history of the franchise while anchoring in 2010. Kevin went even further into the world of home improvements. It was something that no one else on this Old House host had ever done. He went to commercial TV with this new house on the DIY network. Kevin switched from NBC to cable. Without missing a beat, the show that Amy Matthews co-hosted had it was a risk to try a new audience and a format for smart homes. But it worked. The show was nominated for 2 Emmys, and Kevin showed he could do it. A lead in both the commercial and PBS worlds. The network chose him because of his skills. To explain hard things in simple terms, that mix of TV credibility, and he was one of the most trusted names in the business because he really learned. Following that was his biggest personal project, writing a book. In 2011, Kevin published The Best This Old House Is, full of over 200 photos that show the most beautiful changes from the show's history. What made it unique was how personal it was. Was made with help from his college friend Mike Casey, who also took the pictures. Friends, an idea, and a best-selling book gave fans their first chance to really get to know the characters. You can go into finished homes and hear stories from the people who worked on them. Not just about windows and walls, but also about people and their work. The book did very well, and Kevin was asked to join the editorial board for His Voice Now shapes the brand on all platforms for This Old House magazine, ebooks and print TV books. Kevin O'Connor didn't mean to start a fight. But one interview changed everything about home improvement. He didn't hold back when talking about modern DIY shows. He called most of them out. Crap means not only dull or lazy, but also completely useless. He said he couldn't stay interested in them for a second. That one sentence went viral like wildfire. People in the industry were shocked. Other hosts were furious. It was the face of this old house with the most prestigious name. Kevin didn't back down when he said these things on Renovation TV. They lied to the public about getting expensive makeovers done over the weekend. Didn't make sense, and timelines that were made up. He warned people at home tried to copy these changes but failed, not because they weren't smart, but because the shows were better. That were fake, which made people angry. Some praised his honesty, while others said they were cocky and trying to control who could teach home improvement. Kevin wasn't just ranting, he was separating fun from serious things. And schooling on one side, there were networks like HGTV that showed renovations into reality TV. On the other hand, there was PBS, where Kevin stood tall and proudly watched, giving people real skills. He called it the philosophy war. There was a lot of waste on the show. Flip a house fast, make it pretty, sell it for profit, but he wanted to draw attention to the real beauty of craftsmanship in the building's bones. So dangerous were these shows, he said. They led people to believe they could tear down their kitchen in a weekend. Do it right, and believe that way could cause real harm. Soon HGTV stars responded by saying Kevin didn't get their audience. They didn't build cathedrals. Instead, they gave regular people hope that they could make changes at home. Kevin didn't move when it got bigger, but what really confused people was what Kevin didn't say anything about. Bob Vila, the man who built this old house in 1979. Left in a cloud in 1989, Kevin never talked about him again. Bob was getting paid $500,000 a year to host a show that was paid for by sponsors. By public television. When he backed a store that competed with Home Depot and backed the show, it became a scandal. Being thrown out, but Kevin didn't say a word for more than 20 years. Insiders believe the silence is intentional, which is a smart move by VA, still big in the world of home improvements. Talking about the past could bring up old wounds. Kevin has never been one to get into fights over small things. Don't help him. That's how he kept friends in the business on both sides. There is one place Kevin won't stay, even when things got heated. Quiet craftsmanship. If you say something bad about how houses were built 100 years ago, he'll shut up. He says that old builders weren't stupid, they just chose wisely based on coal was cheap, fiberglass insulation wasn't around, and they didn't have any power tools. Okay, so some homes didn't have insulation, but that made sense in the past. Kevin says that modern builders laugh at these choices without understanding why they were made. He also pushes against the trend of tiny homes. People often say that smaller is better for the environment, but Kevin says that a 5,000 square foot building isn't always inefficient because of its size. A 1,000 square foot house built 15 years ago that wasn't built well can use more energy than a modern one. A long time ago that got him into fights with environmentalists, but he cares that people understand before they judge. There is a man who has done very well behind all of these opinions. Kevin makes about $10,000 a season for this old house, and Ask Millions made just over $380 from episodes of This Old House that aired in 2022. TV, Bob Vila, on the other hand, made only $200 per episode in the early days and reached a high point of $800 by the end. Kevin's rate is more than 12 times in those days. Higher VA made about $5,200 a season, which is about $15,000. Kevin, on the other hand, made that in just 2 episodes. About $5 million to $7.68 million, but the cash doesn't stop there. Kevin has become a big name in public speaking thanks to TV. For each keynote he makes between $15,000 and $50,000 a year. He doesn't just talk about hammers, he gets whole industries going. He was the main speaker at the huge landscaping trade show Equip Exposition in 2024. Crest-sponsored event in Kentucky. His talk was about the future of contracting. These speeches aren't just about money, they're also about power. They give people the chance to get what they want. He can talk to builders, manufacturers, and business leaders. He's no longer just a host, he's an expert. That wide reach makes it possible for partnerships, investments, and big deals.